Chapter 23 Investigative Helland 22 July 2009 Minato sighed as once again. Junpei and Akihiko pulled him to the beach the moment he left his room. The boy carefully applied sunscreen as he yawned loudly.
Why am I here again?
Junpei shook his head as he stared at the ocean.
Man, it's already the third day of our trip. It's too bad we have to go home tomorrow. I'd totally stay longer if I could. But I can't complain. A lot of cool things happened while we were here.
Minato raised an eyebrow at the boy.
I guess you're right.
He relented.
But I appreciate it more if you guys let me sleep a little longer,
he said while stifling a yawn.
Come on, dude. You had fun yesterday.
Junpei laughed at his friend before taking off somewhere. Akihiko shook his head.
How can you be so full of energy? We were all up so late last night.
Junpei returned with Aigis in tow. The android looked at him with confusion.
Do we have a mission at the beach today? Mom.
Junpei smiled as the rest of the girls arrived.
It's nothing like that. We just came here to have some fun.
Fuka nodded her head.
Do you understand what it means to have fun, Aigis? Of course.
Aigis nodded.
Recreation is the refreshment of one's mind and body. Exactly.
Junpei exclaimed.
Wow, you sure know a lot about us humans. All right, let's take one last dip before we leave.
Junpei charged towards the water with the robot in tow. Fuka's eyes widened.
Oh, hold on, Junpei-kun. Is it okay for Aigis to go in the ocean?
Hikari looked over towards the blonde girl.
Oh, I'm sure she's waterproof.
Hamuko giggled as she poked her brother's chest.
Are you going to swim today, Nissan? I'm tired.
The boy groaned.
Can't I just be left alone?
He sat up when he noticed Aigis returning to them. Fuka looked at her with concern.
What's wrong, Aigis? It is best that we all engage in this activity together,
she said.
An activity in which only one person derives enjoyment is not the optimal method to have fun.
Yukari sighed.
Do we have to?
She looked over to Junpei, who was waving them to come over. She relented as she followed Aigis into the water. Fuka giggled.
We should join them,
she said to Mitsuru.
Okay.
The redhead nodded with a smile. Minato crossed his arms.
No, I'm not getting up. I refuse. Nissan.
Hamuko smirked at him but noticed Ikitsuki approaching them.
Hello, Ikitsuki-san.
She smiled. The man smiled back at her.
Are you enjoying yourself? We've been quite busy during our time here, but it looks as if we can relax a bit today. Finally.
Minato huffed as he reclined.
Hey.
Junpei called out to them.
Akihiko-san, come on. It's your turn. My turn.
Akihiko frowned.
What are they doing?
Ikitsuki laughed.
I'm glad to see everyone is having so much fun. I've already told you what time the ship will be arriving tomorrow. Yes? I'll most likely head over to the port early, so don't be late.
The senior nodded to him.
Okay, I'll let everyone know. We can get back down to business again once we're back at the dorm.
Ikitsuki reassured the three as he left.
Got it.
Akihiko nodded. Junpei was beginning to get impatient.
Hamuko. Akihiko-senpai. You too, Minato. This again.
Akihiko shook his head.
I guess we should go too. Feedback.
Minato sighed as Hamuko pulled him up.
Fine.
He smirked as Aigis blasted Junpei with a high-powered water cannon.
Aigis, wait.
The cat boy shouted.
That's not what water gun means. Fuka
laughed.
Junpei-kun is down.
Hikari jumped up.
Alright, here's our chance for an all-out attack. Attack!
Hamuko charged.
Get ready for some mass destruction.
Minato smirked, joining them.
Whoa, time out.
Junpei struggled as the team bombarded him with water balloons.
I seriously can't take much more of this. Chao.
Minato laughed until he noticed he was having a lot of fun. Can things really continue this way? He asked himself with a frown as the full arcana flashed before his eyes. July 2009. Junpei sighed as they finally returned to the dorm.
Man, I'm beat. It seemed to take forever to get back. Yeah.
Fuka nodded.
It was a tiring trip. Please rest up so you're ready for the next operation. Yeah.
Junpei frowned.
I don't have any plans for summer break, so I can fight shadows all you want.
Yukari smirked at the Catboy.
Wow, you must really be bored. SH, shut up. Yuka-ten. Whatever.
The girl rolled her eyes.
We just have to defeat those last 6, and it'll be all over. The lost will get better, and everything will be back to normal, right? That's why we have to try our hardest.
She looked over towards the blue-haired boy gently setting down his sleeping sister on the couch.
Isn't that right, Minato? I suppose.
The leader answered as he frowned to himself. That plan still didn't sit well with him, but he kept his thoughts to himself as he looked out the window and at the night sky.
Hey, I'm going out.
He absently stated as he started for the door. Fuka looked at him in surprise.
But we just got back. There's something I need to check out.
The boy responded.
Don't worry. I'll be back before the dark hour. What about Hamuko?
Junpei knit his eyebrows together.
We're just gonna leave her down here. Just let her sleep.
Minato shrugged.
I'll bring her upstairs myself when I get back. Later.
The 3 juniors looked to each other with concern, but didn't stop their leader. Whenever he was in his hellhound mode, it was difficult to talk him out of something. And even if they did interfere, he only just snapped at them. They would just have to trust him with his investigation. Shinjiro frowned when the punks at the hangout began cheering. He put some distance between himself and the crowd before collapsing to a knee. He gasped for air before sensing 3 people approaching him. Ditch them again.
He seemed to be in great pain.
A shirtless boy with long hair looked down at him.
You guys.
Shinjiro picked himself back up.
Oh shit, it's them.
A punk whispered as he noticed their presence.
You mean those 3?
A girl asked.
Wow, they're freaky.
The boy shook his head at her.
Shut up. Let's go.
A girl wearing a white dress stared at them as they all dispersed. The shirtless boy shook his head as he sighed.
Why do they always run and hide when I approach? They're like back alley rats. Beats me.
Shinjiro answered.
Shin.
The boy looked over to his friend with glasses beside him.
Give him the capsules.
Shinjiro reached for the pills.
Thanks. I'll pay you the same as. Hold up,
Jin said, pulling his hand back. The pale shirtless young man held up a hand.
This time, information will suffice. Your acquaintances have been busy lately. I'm referring to their activities on nights when the moon is full. They spent a great deal of time in a tower as well. Why did they take this burden upon themselves?
Shinjiro remained silent. Shit. They're asking about them now. Well, I ain't a rat.
You do know, don't you?
The shirtless boy tilted his head to the side.
But you don't wish to say? Is it because they are your friends?
The image of a red-eyed girl's smiling face flashed through Shinjiro's head.
Ah, I've got nothing to do with them,
he said a little more forcefully than he should have.
Then, tell us,
the pale boy said.
Wouldn't you agree these bells are more important than a bunch of strangers? Ditch.
Shinjiro frowned. Sorry, Aki.
I don't know the details, but supposedly, if you destroy all those creatures, then the tower will disappear, and with it, the dark hour.
The boy's eyes widened.
You mean they intend to eliminate the dark hour? Why would they do such a thing, with the power they have? What?
Shinjiro narrowed his eyes on the shirtless boy.
They wish to destroy the Tower of Demise as well? Tower of Demise.
Shinjiro never heard that one before.
Who wouldn't want to take out that damn tower?
Jin frowned as his friend was becoming agitated.
Easy, Takaye. Yes, yes.
Takaru regained his composure. Jin handed over the pills and the three soon left. Shinjiro pulled his beanie down over his eyes as his other hand tucked the pills into his pocket.
Humph. I can't go back. Not after what happened.
Still, the boy couldn't get rid of the dread building inside him for giving up that information. Looks like Kaoru Hamuku's some answers after all.
A
boy scoffed from nearby.
Looks like my theory was right.
Shinjiro looked up as the blue-haired boy stepped out of the shadows.
Hiru.
The older boy was impressed with how well the junior could hide his presence. Minato watched the three rogue persona users recede. They have the same reapers as Aragaki-san. He looked over toward Shinjiro.
Let me see those pills,
he said as he walked over to the older boy.
Like how I'm handing them over.
Shinjiro spat out.
They reek of death,
Minato coolly said, eyes narrowing.
I'll give them back. I just want to look at one. Death?
Shinjiro studied the boy.
Come on, what's with that look?
The boy crossed his arms.
You know you're dying. I know you're dying. Now hand one over.
So he definitely knows. The tall boy tossed a pill to the boy.
So, how'd you figure it out? You special? Something like that.
Minato shrugged as he studied the capsule in his hand. He frowned as he heard faint laughter coming from the pill. Akatsuki. He must be their supplier.
I've been seeing reapers for most of my life. Everybody dies at some point, but it never gets easier when a new one shows up in these eyes of mine.
Minato handed the pill back.
So who were those guys? They have the same reaper you do. They're probably the ones you're looking for in that investigation of yours.
Shinjiro shrugged.
Hamuko told you.
Minato frowned.
You ought to keep your sister on a tighter leash.
The former C's member smirked.
She's been stirring up shit here with her casual visits. Well, I have to at least thank you for taking care of her.
Minato politely bowed.
I'm grateful nothing bad has come to her. Aragaki-san. Yeah.
Shinjiro rolled his eyes.
So why are you here? It can't just because you want to kiss my ass. You want some info too? That's right.
Minato gravely nodded.
Hamuko told me you used to be a part of C's. That means you must have known Ikatsuki. The chairman?
Shinjiro frowned.
Why are you looking into him? He has a reaper on him too.
The blue-haired boy replied.
But his is different. It's more of a gesture and it's taunting me. Traces of his reaper are also in those pills. Hand on.
Shinjiro shook his head.
He's saying he's the main supplier of these suppression pills. Suppression?
Minato frowned.
So they suppress your persona.
Crap. I said too much. The older boy frowned. The younger boy put his hand in his pockets.
I don't really care why you take them or why you quit, Aragaki-san. I just want some answers. If you have conditions for me, name them. You won't tell Aki about those pills or those reapers, you see. That's easy enough.
Minato shrugged.
You won't tell your sister either.
Shinjiro tacked on.
That's a bit harder.
The blue-haired boy frowned.
But I guess it's doable. Is that all? For now.
The jacketed boy nodded.
So what do you want to know? Those three personas, what kind of personas do they have? I dunno.
Shinjiro shrugged.
I can't really tell. I've never seen him. One of them must have a cloaking power.
Minato theorized.
Do they have evokers? If they do, they hide them pretty well. That Takoyaga's got a gun, but I'm sure you know what that's for.
Shinjiro shook his head.
Actually, they probably do, considering they are on the suppression pills too. The pills. They are only for suppressing a persona. Can they do other things too? If you use a lighter dose, it probably makes it easier to control a persona. You saw those three. They look pretty unstable to me.
Shinjiro smirked.
So you don't know anything about Ikitsuki?
Minato asked.
Or anything about the Kirjo group? No.
The boy shook his head.
I know as much as Aki about the Kirjo group, and that ain't saying much. Is that all you got from me?
Minato stared down the alleyway.
Can I try one of those pills? Ah.
Shinjiro looked at the boy in surprise.
Are you crazy? You just said you could sense death coming off of him. Just a question.
The boy sighed, his shoulders sagging.
I went to see if the Reapers would disappear if I take one. Hitch, no way.
Shinjiro shook his head.
It ain't your time to go. Besides, don't you have a sister you need to look out for? So if I take those pills, I really would die.
Minato mused.
You think I'm wearing this coat for fun? It's the middle of summer and I need this to keep warm.
The older boy scolded him.
You don't want to jack up your body with the shit, kid. I suppose.
The younger boy sighed.
But what about you? What about me? You're not afraid of death?
Minato asked in mild surprise.
Like you said before, everybody dies at some point.
Shinjiro frowned sadly.
I suppose.
Minato frowned back.
I guess that's all then. Thank you for your cooperation, Aradaki-san. Remember to not tell Aki and Hamuko.
Shinjiro reminded him.
I won't.
The blue-haired boy nodded his head.
I'll let Hamuko know you said hi, though. She's not going to leave me alone unless I tell her that much. Well, can't have you completely lie to her.
Shinjiro smirked.
Tell her I said hi and to stop dropping by. Her visits gave me a headache.
Minato smirked back at him.
Will do.
The younger boy quickly turned to leave, but after a few steps, he paused and looked back at the rough teen.
Oh. Actually, I need to ask you one more thing. What's that?
Shinjiro sighed in annoyance. The younger boy sheepishly scratched his head.
How do I get back to the dorm from here? I might be a little bit lost,
he admitted.
You got to be kidding me.
The brunet groaned as he wondered just how exactly Minato gained the title of Hellhound. 24th July 2009.
Good morning. Please wake up.
Minato groaned as a voice that wasn't his sister's was urgently waking him. He sat up and opened his eyes only to let out a yelp.
I guess. Mission accomplished.
The robotic gull beamed at him.
Why are you here?
Minato asked.
My highest priority is to be by your side.
That's just great.
Mission accomplished?
The boy continued to question the robot's motives. She pointed at the sticky note he posted on his bulletin.
The paper on the wall says, 2 things 5 minutes early. Therefore, I woke you up 5 minutes prior to the triggering of your alarm clock. I don't have an alarm clock,
Minato cried. He paused when he heard someone knocking on his door.
Hey, are you awake?
Yukari called out to him.
That girl disappeared, and we can't find her anywhere. Think you can help us out? She might have gone out on her own, like she did in Yakushima. I am not a girl,
Aigis said, tilting her head to the side in confusion.
I am Aigis, and I am here. Huh?
Yukari noticed the door open and Aigis was indeed there.
Aigis, how did you? He was asleep and the door was unlocked, so I came in.
Aigis answered. Minato's face fell.
What? Annie, what's everyone doing in the sense room?
Hamuko came in with a smile, but paused when she noticed her brother's livid face glaring at Aigis.
Well, she broke into your room too. That's unlawful entry.
Hikari scolded the robot.
Didn't we tell you to stay in the command room at night? I propose to be on standby in this room from now on. Is this acceptable? What?
Hikari shook her head.
And no, it's not acceptable. If there is a problem,
Aigis said,
then I will address it promptly. The problem is it's against dorm regulations.
Hikari turned towards Minato.
Well, don't just sit there. Tell her.
It was too early for the boy to be dealing with this. He sighed and glared at Aigis.
You can't stay here. Tea?
Yukari sighed in relief.
He agrees. I will do as told.
Aigis nodded.
You can stay in my room, Aigis.
Hamuko offered.
It's fine with me.
Yukari looked at her friend oddly.
You're okay with that? Well, I guess your room will be Aigis' room too from now on. I will proceed to retrieve my equipment.
The robot considered.
Is it all right to place the spare ammunition on the floor?
Hamuko nervously chuckled.
What? Amar?
Hikari shook her head.
And no way. But I must be by her side too.
Aigis stated.
Oh well.
Hikari sighed.
I'll have a room prepared for you on the 3rd floor, so you can stay nearby. Oh, and don't leave the dorm by yourself, okay? I will do as commanded.
Aigis nodded. The Archer sighed.
I'm tired. I have practice this morning, so I gotta go.
She shrugged as she left. Aigis remained in Minato's room, nodding as she understood something.
Everyone goes to a place called school in the morning. I comprehend. Yeah.
Minato frowned.
I need to change, so please get out.
Hamuko chuckled as she grabbed the robot's hand.
Let's give Nissan some space. Aigis.
Hamuko frowned at her brother.
I don't think Aigis means any harm. She can't lie at all. How do we know that she's programmed to completely tell the truth?
Minato frowned as he sipped his coffee.
We can ask her,
the girl suggested.
And how would we do that?
The blue-haired boy shook his head.
No. I need to keep my guard up until I'm certain she's safe. Even then, I can't just casually speak with her. I think she's just confused.
Hamuko crossed her arms.
I don't know why, but she gives me the same vibe as Pharaoh's. She's looking out for us.
The red-eyed girl brightened as she came up with a question that would clear things up for them.
When Aigis is around, do you hear laughing or see the joking weeper?
The boy frowned.
No, I don't. Then AI-chan is fine.
Hamuko smirked.
AI-chan.
The older brother frowned to himself before conceding to his sister.
Oh, okay. You might have a point, but I expect you to keep her under control then.
Minato knit his eyebrows together.
This investigation really is getting to me.
He stared at his cup with a sad expression.
Besides you, I don't know who to rely on or trust anymore.
Hamuko sadly stared at her brother and shook her head.
Speaking of your investigation, Junpei told me you went out last night. Did you see Shinjiro-san? Yeah.
The boy nodded.
He told me a few things. Apparently, there's 3 renegade persona users. He's seen them in the back alley, so I suggest you avoid that place. Hamuko. Aragaki-san thinks they've been watching us. Okay.
The girl seemed down that she'd no longer be able to visit the tall boy.
Ichie.
Minato looked at her worriedly.
What's wrong? I might like Shinjiro-san,
Hamuko admitted.
I worry about him a lot. Is he eating well? Is he getting enough sleep? Things I usually ask you about, but it's different when I apply it to him. I get scared because I don't know the answers to those questions. Hamuko.
The blue-eyed boy lowered his gaze and frowned as he thought of the boy's imminent death.
I don't think you should be getting involved with him. It wouldn't be good for you. Biba. I want to help him. Nissan. He looks so sad every time I see him. He hides it, but it's still there. I don't want him to be alone. But what if that's his choice?
Minato questioned her.
Nobody wants to be alone, Nissan. You should know that better than anyone,
she quietly said. The boy paused for a moment.
Why, you're right. I'm sorry. I forget sometimes you don't like to be alone.
They remained silent as Minato quickly downed his coffee.
Let's not talk about this anymore, Hamuko.
He tried to come up with another topic.
Oh, I got all of my film developed on campus today. We actually got some nice shots during our trip. There's one I'm particularly happy about, and I can't wait to show Fuka. Is it of her, Nissan?
Hamuko smiled as she knew her brother set the conversation up specifically so she could tease him.
Ichie.
Her brother smirked back.
It was a perfect shot. I couldn't help but take it. It must be perfect if you're this happy about it,
Hamuko pointed out with a laugh. Minato chuckled, but he noticed the pain still hidden behind her red eyes. He let out a heavy sigh.
Hey, Hamuko? Yeah, Nissan?
The girl looked at her brother, noticing he was being serious.
I'm probably going to visit Aragaki-san again. When I do, I'll give him your number, okay? If it means that much to you, I'll tell him to give you a call. Really?
The girl's smile returned.
Why, yeah.
Minato nodded.
Just don't be sad if it doesn't work out, okay?
The older twin coughed as he shook his head at the girl.
Aragaki-san seems pretty difficult. What's so attractive about a guy with his personality? You're one to talk.
Hamuko pulled on his cheek.
You're the same way sometimes. I'm surprised you're so sweet towards Fuka-chan but so prickly to everyone else.
She stopped teasing him as she gave him a grateful smile.
Thanks, Nissan. You're the best.
Minato sighed, but his expression remained soft.
Anything I can. I don't like it when you don't smile. Things just don't feel right.
Shinjiro-san thinks the same thing. Hamuko smiled to herself. He really is just like Nissan. She finished her drink and waited for her brother to pay. Minato checked the time and looked at her expectantly.
Hey, you still have time? I want to stop by Escapade before we go. Another fortune reading?
Hamuko guessed.
Yeah.
Her brother nodded.
Come on, it'll be fun. Sure.
The younger twin shrugged. She followed him to the clothes club but was surprised when the bouncer opened the door for them without a word.
You must come here a lot. Like I told you before, Mama has connections.
He smiled at the fortune teller and gave her a polite bow.
I'm back. I brought my sister with me this time, so I hope you don't mind. Not at all.
Mama smiled at the two.
It seems you both carry the same fate. Both of you are bearers of light and shadow. It's just represented more strongly within you. Light and shadow?
Hamuko repeated. Just what sort of fortunes are we dealing with here? Minato took a seat and motioned for his sister to continue.
So what's my fortune today? You have 2 fortunes today also.
The lady smiled.
Would you like to know them?
Hamuko nodded her head, curious.
Yes, please.
The red-eyed girl watched as the crystal ball on the table began to glow. The woman began speaking, and the brunette made out the shape of multiple evokers.
Guns scattered in the billowing shadow. Arms reach in to grasp them.
The various members of Seas flashed through the orb, aiming their evokers at themselves.
Their muzzles pointed at different shadows, their triggers pulled on different occasions.
Hamuko saw the image of 3 middle school students pointing evokers at themselves before one faded away. The remaining 2 grew taller and 6 more people joined them. The image split in half as 3 faint figures stood in a group shadow, while 1 figure stood at the border between both groups.
Where do you point your gun? What will occur as a result of its firing?
Everyone faded except for 2 figures Hamuko made out to be her and her brother.
Can you collect all of the guns that have been scattered?
The image suddenly faded.
What?
Hamuko was amazed. The fortune wasn't specific and was very vague, but she felt as though she learned a lot from those visions.
And our other fortune?
Minato asked. Mama nodded as she looked back into her ball.
Very well. I see a girl.
Minato frowned as Aigis appeared standing at the border of darkness and light.
She stands between light and dark, life and simulacrum. She falters, as if not knowing on which side she belongs.
Minato saw Akatsuki on one side of the border while he himself was on the other side.
She's trying to tell you something.
Aigis reached out towards Minato.
Can you hear her words?
Minato's vision flashed as the memory of his parents' death returned to him. What? Aigis knows something about that. He rested his hand on his head.
You seem troubled.
The fortune teller looked at Minato with concern.
A memory.
The boy frowned.
Something I must have forgotten. Something that both of us forgotten.
Hamuko crossed her arms.
The key lies in the shadows.
The lady nodded to them.
Farewell, then. May your future be bright.
The twins left to escapade and Hamuko looked to her brother with worry.
These fortunes, they're very good, but they are extremely vague. They're good to keep in mind.
Minato nodded.
The thing about fortune-telling is knowing when to listen and when to make your own decisions. But now I know one thing for certain. You were right about Aigis. You're going to pull her into the light?
Hamuko smirked.
How do you know I'm not the one in the shadows?
The older boy smirked back.
We'll just have to see then.
Hamuko shrugged. Hamuko carefully examined her violin bow before lifting the instrument up. As soon as she began playing, the other members of the team relaxed throughout the lounge. The red-eyed girl closed her eyes as she continued to practice. From the couch, Mitsuru smiled as she continued reading her novel. Beside her, Akihiko had fallen asleep while reading the newspaper. Junpei turned the TV volume down as he flipped through the channels to find something interesting to watch. Aigis stood near them as she focused on Hamuko's playing. In the kitchen, Yukari ate her dinner as she listened. She watched as the 2 photographers across from her were busy studying their negatives. Minato softly began to hum along to Hamuko's violin. Fuka lightly giggled at him as she listened to him. The boy's face turned red as he stopped. He looked back towards Hamuko and watched as she finished the song. His twin smirked towards him.
Sir? Pretty good.
The boy shrugged.
Your tempo needs work, though. Can't sped up in the middle without you realizing. You also panicked a bit towards the end, thinking you missed a repeat, didn't you? The good ears always, Nissan.
Hamuko nodded as she made a few marks on her music sheet. Yukari looked to the boy in surprise.
You can actually tell all that?
Fuka agreed with the brunette.
But she sounded amazing.
Mitsuru smiled at the violinist.
No, Yuki is correct. That piece should be much slower. It was a beautiful performance nonetheless. Arigato. Thank you, senpai.
Hamuko slightly bowed before noticing Aigus curiously staring at her violin.
Would you like to try, AI-chan? Would that be okay?
Aigus asked her.
Sure.
Hamuko dragged the robot towards her music stand and showed her how to hold the violin.
Just gently drag the bow across the strings like this.
Hamuko guided the blonde's hand and produced a note. Aigus nodded in understanding.
I see. The vibrations of the strings traveled through.
Junpei chuckled, interrupting her before she could start on a long-winded explanation of how the violin works.
Come on, AI-chan. Try playing something.
The blonde nodded and began playing on her own, resulting in Minato flinching from the terrible screech. Akihiko bolted up as the noise startled him awake.
What's going on?
He looked around in confusion before noticing the android holding Hamuko's violin.
Oh. That was a nice try, Aigus.
He coughed. Aigus looked at the instrument in confusion.
I believe I do not have the skill necessary to perform as Hamuko-san did. That's all right.
Hamuko smiled.
I'll just have to teach you.
The juniors at the dinner table looked to each other with varying degrees of uncertainty plastered over their faces. In the end, Hikari nervously chuckled as she tried to encourage the robot to do her best.
I'm sure you'll get it, Aigus.
Akihiko chuckled.
This'll be interesting to watch.
He nodded. Junpei tugged his cap down.
Whatever you say, Akihiko-san. Let's start the lesson then.
Hamuko nodded.
Why do I have a bad feeling about this?
Minato sighed. Fuka giggled at the boy.
I'm sure things will be fine.
For the rest of the evening, Minato winced as the noise was painful to sit through. The rest of C's endured it with him though. Hamuko gave them all an apologetic frown, but continued with the lesson. By the end of the night, Minato was banging his head on the dining table, hoping to knock himself out. End of chapter.